All right, so for today's video, I'm going to talk about Zener cards, this is basically like a set of cards that you can use to essentially test for ESP, right? This is like an ESP test deck, and if you don't know what ESP it is extrasensory perception, right? And so the whole idea of this, right, is here. There's like 6 GAF cards, right? Which like they have like the weird symbols, but if you can see like on the front here, you have the circle, cross, wave, square, and star shapes. And so the whole idea is that like this entire deck has like different shapes, right? And you're supposed to guess the shape, and also like there's different colors because that's like another level of it is like you can guess the colors, right? But basically like the whole idea behind this is that you're essentially testing how many you get right. And like in this case, there's like 50 cards, right? But in the original Zener card deck, which that's what they're called, they're supposed to be cards that you use to test for clairvoyance and stuff like that. But the original deck is supposed to be 25 of these with the symbols behind it. But in this case it's 50, and so the whole idea is that if you get more consistently over like multiple runs, if you get more correct, if you guess it correctly more than chance would allow, then chances are that it might be clairvoyance or ESP, right? And I think this is like initially I was trying to get into like remote viewing and stuff like that, but I found that like it was way too tedious, and it was really hard to like quantify like, okay, how successful am I? But with this, it's like, okay, how many correct do I get out of 50, right? And so like for I can guess, okay, it's a square. Oh no, it's a star. Okay, I'll put that down, and I can guess this one's a circle, and okay, I got that one correct. And this one I think is going to be like a cross, maybe. Okay, yeah, I got that one correct. And this one's star, incorrect. Maybe wave, incorrect, right? And so what you do is you don't want to like recycle the ones that you got wrong. You want to like separate it into 2 piles, like one that you got right, which is like these are the 2 that I got right, and like the one pile that you of the ones that you got wrong, right? And if you separate it into the 2 piles, you can make like a final calculation of like how many you got right out of 50 in this case, because there's 50 cards in this deck particularly, right? And I think that this is like a really good practice, because I do think that developing these innate abilities that we all have, I think that it really is like going to the gym. It really is like fitness, right? It's a really good analogy. Going to the gym for 9 hours straight just for one day doesn't get you fit. Going to the gym every day for like 20 minutes gets you fit. So I'm planning to do it, to just add that as a part of my routine, to just do one of those each day where I cycle through all the cards and I see how many right I can get out of 50. And I've been doing a bunch of a bunch of like a bunch of like the tests with these, and like the highest I've ever gotten was like 14 out of 50, which yet again, I mean, like this is like I literally just got these today, but and like this is the thing is like I realized that you could do this with like a normal deck of cards too, but it arrived, it's too late. I want to keep these now. But yeah, like with a normal deck of cards, you can use a normal deck of cards as a Zener card deck, because like you have like the 52 cards, right? And you can guess the suit basically. So instead of having like the 5 symbols that you see on here, you can have like the spades, clubs, diamonds, and hearts. And so for this one, I think maybe spades. Okay, got that one correct. Maybe clubs. Nope. Maybe hearts. Nope. Maybe clubs. Okay, that's a joker. Okay, maybe clubs. Yep. Diamonds. Nope. Right. And so you can do that, and you can separate it into cards that you got right, cards that you got wrong, and you can calculate like how many correct out of 52 that you got right. And because there are 4 suits in a regular deck of cards, like the chances of you guessing stuff correctly would be 13 out of 52, because there's 13 cards for each suit. There's 13 heart cards, 13 club cards, 13 diamond cards, so on and so forth, because 13 times 4 is 52, right? So there's 13 cards of each suit for like a regular deck of cards. So if you get above chance for that, like if you guess like 20 correct consistently, yet again you have to do multiple tests. It can't just be one, because it might be a fluke, it might be luck, right? Sometimes you have good runs, sometimes you have bad runs. I remember like one of the worst runs that I did with like the Zener cards was I got like 6 right out of 50 instead of 14 right out of 50, I got like 6 right out of 50 in one run. But basically, yet again, like the whole idea is that you want to just like do something like this every day, where you're just guessing, okay, for this one, let me cut the deck so I can just get a new one. Maybe square. no, maybe star, okay, square, no, circle, no, right? So basically, you just separate it into the two piles, and you just do that as like an exercise each day. It's like in the same way that if you exercise the core. Like if you want to get a bigger chest, you do push-ups, right? If you want to get a bigger chest, you do push-ups, or you do an incline, or not an incline bench press, but just any bench press in general, and you do that consistently. If you want bigger muscles, you use the muscles more, right? It's a use it or lose it situation, right? And you know what it reminds me of is it reminds me of that scene in the Matrix where like Neil's woken up from like the pod for the first time, and he has like all you know how he has like all those jacks inside of him, and like they detach, and he gets dumped into like the sewer, and then like the ship picks him up, right? And then he wakes up in and like Morpheus is there, and like Neil's trying to like move his muscles. Like he's like, why can't I move my muscles? Why can't I move my body? And he said like, you never used your muscles before, right? And I think that is the same thing when it comes to our innate psychic abilities. I think that it's very much the same way where it is a use it or lose it situation. Like imagine trying to do a push-up if you've never done like if you've never used your chest muscles before, if you've never used your tricep muscles before, right? So and it's the same thing here where it's like obviously like the first time it's going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, chance occurrences is that you're going to get like 13 right out of 52 cards for like the regular deck, or for this one, since there's like 5 symbols in this 50 card Zener card deck, then you're getting like 10 right out of 50, because like I did like 5 runs yesterday or last night with these, or not yesterday. I did like 5 runs in a row today, and I get my average was 11 out of 50, which that's about a fifth. All right, so it'll start off with like chance occurrence, right? But I think that over time, if you allow the repetition, the consistency, yet again, it's use it or lose it. If you allow the repetition to get you better at it, then I do think that you can improve those latent abilities there by just using it more, right? And of course, there's people like Pat Price or Ingo Swan who are like remote viewers. Who are like they're just born with just insane psychic ability or psychic talent, right? And this is like the same way that you have people who are just naturally athletic, like they have a six-pack by just, and they don't even go to the gym, right? But that is the exception to the rule, right? I think that if we want to yet again, like knowing the path versus walking the path. Yes, okay, psychic abilities exist. Yes, intuitive abilities exist. You can read about it in books. You can watch documentaries about it on YouTube, right? Like Third Eye Spies was like that's like the documentary about the remote viewing program that the CIA did, right? So you can read about all that stuff, but there's a difference between that and actually applying the principles to actually grow the muscle, right? So I think that this is like a really good way of doing it. Like if you want to get like a Zener card deck, or you can do it, or you could do it like yet again with just like a regular deck of cards you can get at Walmart, and you can practice with the suits, right? Yet again, like this, you can guess like whether or not it's a spade, diamond, club, or heart, right? And you can see how many you get right out of 52, right? And you can just practice and try to get a higher and higher score over a period of time. So this is like a meaningful action, not just talking about it. Not just talking about psychic abilities, not just talking about, oh man, these hidden abilities exist, and how do we acquire them? We acquire them through practice over time, right? And it's the same thing with like a lucid dreaming, which I talk about on my channel, where I've been lucid dreaming for like from like whenever I started to dream journal, whenever I started to get into lucid dreaming to now, it's been a little over 2 years. And I think that is the main reason why lucid dreaming isn't as popular as it should be. And lucid dreaming is if you don't know what it is, it's being able to be aware of and control your dreams while you're dreaming, right? So, and I think that the time commitment and the consistency is something that is I guess unpopular when it comes to the skill. But I'm definitely better off now than I was like 2 weeks ago, even a week ago, because I've been getting better and better at the skill, and I've been getting more of those stable full length lucid dreams. I have like the fundamentals nailed down because of the fact that I spent so much time just repetition showing up. And so I think that this, doing like the Zener card deck and all this other stuff, right, is also another great way to do it. And you can quantify it, right? You can write down a number that says how you did, which is that's more of a personal thing that I really like. But yet again, like the basic structure is guess, oh, okay, I think this one's a square and it's not. I think this one might be a circle and it's not. Cross, yes. Okay, square, no. Wave, no. Star, No, right. So you like you separate it into, and obviously like I'm not that good at guessing the Zener cards, right? But you're just like practice. That's just a little something that you can do. It's like, it's like brushing your teeth. It's like going to the gym and like doing you have like a workout routine, right? You have like a little habit that you have that through repetition it builds that muscle. You get used to it, right? If you run every day, you get more used to running, right? Your cardiovascular system changes. Your muscles that you used to run change. I remember like whenever I started to lose weight with running, I remember like my abs hurt, my legs hurt, and everything else because like I never used those muscles in that way before. But now I can run pretty consistently, and like those muscle areas that hurt whenever I first began, now they don't hurt anymore because I run so consistently, right? So the consistency seems to matter more than perfection, right? It's not like, oh, I'm gonna do like the perfect session, or I'm gonna try to I'm gonna use the power of my might. Like no, it's not about intensity. It's not about perfection. It does seem to be about just showing up and going through the motions, just doing the thing, right? I think that is something that yet again I'm gonna try to implement this. Into my daily routine, where I'm just going to try to practice, right? Yet again, practice makes perfect, right? Especially if you're watching this and you're a musician, right? You're practicing the same piece of music over and over and over again, for hours. And my parents talked about this, like whenever they were in college. Like my mom played the violin, my dad played the trombone, and they talked about how like they would practice for hours and hours and hours, and they would just repetition, 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 right? I think that is one of the keys of being able to tap into that clairvoyant, our inherent clairvoyant abilities, our inherent ESP abilities. Yet again, ESP, extrasensory perception, right? And I think that it is very much like a muscle. It would seem, right? It just through the sheer repetition, right, of just doing the thing. And if you think about it like a set of like a band of neurons in your brain, like firing off those neurons to try to get information about like, okay, what's this next card at the square? And it's not. Yet again, I'm not very good at guessing the Zener cards right now, but just through repetition, you'll get better and better at guessing the cards, and it'll get to a point where you're not even guessing. You just know what the cards are, because you're tapping into that muscle. Yet again, if you've never used it before, it's going to be very difficult at first to actually be good at it. But if it's like someone who's never done a push-up before versus someone who does push-ups every single day, right? You're going to have an easier time if you allow the repetition to take place and allow you to get better at that muscle. It's very much like a muscle. It's very much like fitness. I think fitness is a really great analogy, right? Because you're consistently showing up and you're using the muscle. Use it or lose it, right? I think it's the same with psychic abilities, where you're doing the thing, and it doesn't seem like it's this big thing. Like, oh, okay, how is this going to help me win the lottery? How is this going to help me spy on military bases, like with remote viewing or whatever? But it definitely is something that it's just a routine that you can add, right? And yet again, you can do this with a normal deck of cards. You can do this with the suits, right? Like, okay, I think this one might be clubs, and oh, okay, it's a joker. Clubs, nope, right? Yet again, I'm not very good at it, but um, like using like either a regular deck of cards or like Zener cards, and just testing that ESP capability or that clairvoyant capability, and logging your performance just over time, to try to improve that muscle, to try to activate that muscle. And yet again, like the intent to activate that muscle plays a huge role, and the intent to actually get the information through ESP, through clairvoyance, will actually be a huge thing. And if you do that consistently, then you'll notice that it'll start to slowly grow, in the same way that if you do push-ups consistently, then your chest muscles will consistently grow, right? So it is about showing up every day. It's not about perfection. It's not about intensity. It's not about I'm going to get zapped with these powers instantly. I do think that it's very much like growing muscles by going to the gym consistently. That if you just show up and try to guess the cards every day. For this one, I think it might be like a square. Nope. Star. Nope. Circle. Nope. Star. Nope. Star. Nope. Wave. Nope. Yet again, I'm not very good at it. Maybe I'm not. Maybe it's like me concentrating on the video instead of on the cards. So that might have an effect. But yeah, I just really wanted to talk about that, because yet again, this is like a meaningful action that you can take in order to develop those abilities. And like another question that I asked myself whenever I was thinking about like the Zener cards, right, was like, oh, okay, so what if I get good at it? Like, I'm just gonna be really good at guessing out of the deck, out of like a deck of cards, right? Like, it seems like this like really redundant thing to do. So like, oh, okay, like I can guess out of the deck of Zener cards, but does that allow me to guess in other areas? Does that improved muscle allow me to, like will this improve remote viewing capability? And I do think so, because I've read some books on, parapsychology and, psychic abilities, and specifically Jeffrey Mishalov's book about Ted Owens. I remember he talks about how, like, if you're good at ESP, you're good at PK, which PK means psychokinesis, which is mind over matter, right? So if you're good at extrasensory perception, you're good at PK, right? If you're good at PK, you're good at ESP. So it does seem to be that there is a carryover, that if you're good at one psychic ability, that you seem to be tapped into all of these other, like telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, whatever, like astral projection, whatever, right? And I do notice this carryover when it comes to lucid dreaming, which is that as I've gotten better at lucid dreaming, I've had more and more out of body experiences. So it's like astral projection and lucid dreaming seem to have like a carryover value, right? And like one of the analogies that I like to use for this is like doing a push up and doing a bench press both exercise your chest muscles, right? So even if you're, it's like you're trying to get information about what the next card is. Maybe it's a star. Yet again, wrong answer there, but like whether it's like you're getting, you're exercising your ESP through a deck of cards, or whether you're doing it with coordinates and you're just random coordinates around the globe or whatever. I do think that, because of the fact that it's exercising the core, maybe it's like your pineal gland, maybe it's your third eye, muscle, so to speak, that's being activated there. Like I don't think it really ultimately, I don't think it really matters how you do it. It doesn't really matter how you exercise it, as long as you do exercise it, right? Yet again, like it doesn't matter if it's a push up, or if it's a bench press, or if you're doing like a weird machine that, like, as long as you're exercising the core muscle, which is like in this example would be chest, then your chest is going to get bigger because you're consistently using it. Yet again, use it or lose it. Whenever it comes to like clairvoyance and like ESP, being able to pick up information non-physically outside of the senses, then, whether you do it with a deck of cards, or whether it's a deck of Zener cards, whether it's a deck of, ordinary cards, or whether it's with, random remote viewing targets, which you can, find on websites online, where they can just auto generate, random remote viewing targets. However it is, like I think that, everyone should get into the habit of doing something, which, yet again, like in my case, it's the Zener cards. I think everyone should get into a habit of doing something, which is, routine. It's repetition. Yet again, consistency matters more than perfection in this case. In order to improve these abilities, right? In order to grow, like these inherent muscles, right? Instead of just waiting to achieve them overnight, instead of waiting for them, instead of waiting to, achieve these abilities, instantly. I think that, we should all work towards, instead of just knowing the path, knowing that these abilities exist. We need to walk the path. We need to have, a daily routine, a daily, I guess you could say it's like a psychic workout routine, that helps us to grow these faculties. And yet again, I do think that there is a carryover to other areas of life, or other areas of, like psychic functioning, that, if you get good at, the clairvoyance required to, guess a deck of Zener cards, right? Then I do think that there is a carryover of, guessing the right lottery numbers, or guessing, like when something's going to happen, or feeling if something's going to happen in the future or something. So I do think that there is, based on, like the books that I've read. I've read, Russell Targ's book, Limitless Mind, which is about remote viewing. I've read, Jeffrey Mishalov's book. It's called The PK Man. It's about Ted Owens, but this guy he had like crazy psychic abilities, but like based on the books that I've read, it does seem to be that, like, if you get good at like one, like whether it's telepathy or clairvoyance, or like you're able to remote view, that being good at one makes you good at like at the others. It makes you good at like the other types, right? Like, being good at doing push-ups means that you're probably going to be better than you're probably going to be good at bench press if you can do push-ups, right? Yet again, like I do think that, using the fitness analogy, using, like the working out analogy, I think that is a really powerful analogy to understand, like, okay, how do we develop these abilities? Is that we develop them consistently over time, rather than, waiting for instant results. We need to have, habits. We need to have, meaningful action that we do every day to grow, that core psychic muscle, so that we can utilize that in other parts of our life. Um, and this sort of reminds me of like this other thing too, which is that, regular exercise changes DNA. Like that's a real thing. Like you have an epigenome, which is that's a set of genetics that you can change voluntarily, right? And so like you can have like two identical twins, and one of them's a marathon runner and one of them's like an overweight office worker, and like they'll have different genetics even though they're identical twins. They'll have different epigenomes, right? And I think that there is a huge link between psychic functioning and DNA. I do think that there are genetics that whether it's like the Draco reptilians or like the demons that run this world, like they've tried to like the stuff that they put in the chemtrails, the stuff that they put in the vaccines, the stuff that they put into the water, into the food and everything else. They've tried to block off these genetic programs, right? And so maybe in the same way that physical exercise can change our genetics, maybe psychic exercise can unlock those genetic programs as well, right? And it reminds me of like going back to me running to lose weight. I remember I think that was one of the major reasons that I outgrew my asthma. I remember there was this one day where like I wasn't wheezing anymore, like I wasn't wheezing down the street anymore, and this was like years ago. Whenever COVID, whenever 2020 happened and we were all stuck at home, I started working out, and every time I ran I would like wheeze down the street because I had asthma or whatever. And I remember like there was one day where like it's like my trachea or like my like windpipe or whatever just sort of just opened up, and like I remember I didn't have like the wheezing problems of like the like going down the street. Like I didn't have those anymore because of the fact that repetitious consistent action was able to change the program. And I think that in a very powerful way that we can change the program to activate these latent abilities. But yeah, that's the video.